Hi everyone, I'm Carlos Zambrano, student of the program Bachelor in English as a Foreign Language. Today, I'm going to present to you my lesson plan about an important topic. But first, I would like to start with the next important question. Why is it important to learn English? I would like that you analyze the composition of this important question or interesting question. And as you can see, I'm using a special word at the beginning that is a WH. But to be most concrete, I would like to share with you and explain the topic WH questions. WH questions are usually words that start with a word beginning with WH, but how is also included. The WH words are what, when, where, who, whom, which, whose, why, and how. The meaning of the WH questions is the next. What, that means que, and asks for information about something. When, that means cuando, and ask about the time of something happened or will happen. Where, that means donde, and ask questions about place or position. Which, that means cuál, that asks for information about one of a limited number of things. Who, that means quién, and asks about someone's identity. Whom, that means a quién, asks about for the person in the sentence. Whose, cuyo, that asks about possession. Why, por qué, that asks for the reason of something. And how, that means cómo, and asks about the way in which something is done. Here in this part of my class, students are going to see an interesting video with the most relevant information about WH questions. This video is about, or the time for this video is almost 10 minutes, but after that of this video, students are going to know some important tips for the WH questions. WH questions begin with what, when, where, who, whom, which, whose, why, and how. We use them to ask for information. The answer can't be yes or no. For example, when do you finish college? Next year. Or the other example is, who is your favorite actor? George Clooney for sure. I consider that with these two examples, students will understand the main idea of this topic. But it also is important that students know another relevant aspects for WH questions. And I have for them another tips. The first one is warning. When what, who, which, or whose is the subject or part of the subject, we don't use the auxiliary. We use the word order, subject plus verb. For example, what fell off the wall? Which horse won? Who bought this? Whose phone rang? At this time, I'm going to make a comparison for that the students can advise or interiorize this information. Who owns this bag? Who is the subject of the sentence and this bag is the object? We use no auxiliary verb. For the question, who do you love most? Who is the object of the sentence and you is the subject. Also, we use the auxiliary verb do. With this information that it was very relevant, we can continue with the next part that talks about the forming WH question with an auxiliary verb. We usually form question with WH plus an auxiliary verb as be, do, or have, plus the subject, plus the main verb, or with WH, plus a modal verb, plus subject, plus the main verb. For example, with the verb to be, the first example is, when are you leaving? Who's been paying the bills? With the auxiliary do. Where do they live? Why didn't you call me? With the auxiliary have. What has she done now? What have they decided? And with a modal verb, the example is, who would she stay with? Where should I park? I consider that students have important examples which they can identify the composition of the questions with WH. But this information is not enough. We have to explain another important aspects of this topic. WH questions and answers. WH question asks for information and we don't expect a yes or not answer to a WH question. We expect an answer which gives information. Remember, with WH question, the idea is that the information is extensive. It can be a yes or no. For example, the exercise or the example A. Where's the coffee machine? We expect an answer about the location of the coffee machine, of course. B. It's in the room next to the reception. This is a very good answer to the last question. It's an open question with an extensive answer. For example, how old is your dog? With this question, we expect an answer about the age of the dog. And the possible answer for the last question is, she's about 5. I'm not very sure. Okay, I consider that was very relevant information and we can continue with the next examples of this topic. A WH question for negative sentences. When we ask negative WH questions, we use the auxiliary verb do when there is no other auxiliary of modal verb, even when the WH word is the subject of the clause. For example, for affirmative with no auxiliary, who wants an ice cream? Maybe, which door opened? Now we are going to see an evidence, an example or some examples with negative auxiliary do. And the examples there are, who doesn't want an ice cream? Or which door didn't open? Nice examples. Now I have more important information about WH questions for you. Adding a WH word at the end of a statement to make a question. Spoken English. In speaking, we can sometimes turn WH question into statement questions. For example, what's today's date? Or today's date is what? We do this especially when we are checking information that we have already been given or when we want to quickly check a particular detail. These are less formal than full WH questions. For example, question. So we are all going to be there at 8? The answer, right, I'm traveling with Larry. Another question. You are traveling with you? More formal. Who are you traveling with? The answer could be with Larry. We are actually going on our bikes. Another important question or example can be, is your sister here too or just your mother? The example can be, just my mother. And the last example for this statement is, and she's here until when? Or in a more formal way can be, and when is she here until? Or even more formal, until when is he here? As you can see, we have to add WH words at the end of a statement to make a question. But we have, or I have for you, more important information about WH questions or words, prepositions and practicals with WH questions. We can use WH words and phrases after prepositions in more formal questions. For example, where will the money come from? Or in a formal way, from where will the money come? Spoken English. In informal styles, especially in speaking, the preposition may be separated and placed at the end of a question clause. For example, what will I talk to her about? Or who should we send the invitation to? As in informal situation. But for formal situation, the sentence can be, whom should we send the invitation to? Or even more formal, to whom should we send the invitation? I consider that were very nice examples to determine the prepositions and particles with WH question. Finally, or the last example that I prepared for you is, for what reason did she leave him? As you can see, is for formal situation that we use in that sentence the preposition plus the WH phrase. Finally, students have to develop some interesting exercises with WH question, which they can practice with the organization, the words at this case. And through this organization, I consider that they should determine some important grammar aspects of the composition of the WH questions. Here, the idea is that they try to organize the words and build the WH question in the correct way. Here, students have 10 important exercises, and the idea is that they determine what is the order and what WH question is composed for each sentence. For example, the first one, we have the word they, other word doing, art, and what. The correct composition for this sentence could be, what are they doing? And we use the WH question, what. The idea is that students take 30 seconds to develop each one of these sentences and at the end socialize with their partners, also with their teacher, if these sentences are good and they interiorize and assimilate the concepts. I prepare for them another important exercise, which the students must write questions about the words involved. For example, he drank juice, and they have to build or organize the sentence for this affirmative, the affirmation that I said. I repeat, the affirmative sentence that I give them is he drank juice, but they have to build the question. The question for this affirmative sentence is, what did he drink? As you can see, students, you have to write the sentence for each one of these affirmative or statements that I give you. They went to Spain. He writes novels. Lacey likes soccer. The girls